Mr. Mayor is joining me now, so thank you for being back on Picks on Politics.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Mr. Mayor, we've come to the end of what was a very eventful 2023, right? So when you look at the totality of the year, if you had to describe it, and it's tough to do, in one word, what would that word be, and tell me why?
New York. This is a place where every day you wake up, you could experience everything from a plane crashing into our trade center to a person who's celebrating a new business that's open. This is a very, very complicated city, and that's why it's the greatest city on the globe.
Mm-hmm. When you look at the highs and lows, right, can you describe one high and one low for 2023?
The high. We have more private sector jobs in the history of the city. Mm-hmm. It shows a real healthy movement towards our city coming back. And the low is clearly 150,000 migrant asylum seekers that really put a real bump in the road of our recovery effort in the city.
And I will talk about the migrant crisis in just a second, because that's going to be one of the topics we discuss here as a big event that took place in New York City. But I want to talk about your approval rating. Ending the year of 2023, 28%, the lowest for a mayor since the 1990s. And I've heard you talk about this quite often, that you don't really look at poll numbers, right? But what do you see as the driving factor to that 28%?
Well, I could have told you that before a poll came out, because I'm in the streets. New Yorkers are angry. They're angry.
At you or the situation?
They're angry at just the totality of where they see this situation has brought us. And, you know, beginning of the year and even into the year, they thought this was Eric Adams just opening our city up, not looking at the impact of what this crisis. And we had to do a real job of explaining to everyday New Yorkers that the federal government has abandoned this important issue that's a national issue. So they're angry, and it's going to come out. I'm the mayor, mm-hmm. You know, and so you're going to point towards the mayor. If your trains are not on time, if your trash is not picked up, if you see cuts in services, that is my role. Mm-hmm. I have to navigate us through this.
All right. So how do you plan on changing that? How do you plan on bringing up that approval number?
Working hard. You know, any mayor would tell you that go through a period where your approval numbers are down. What do? You continue to work hard, produce the product. Before becoming mayor, I spoke with some of the, some mayors across the country and said, what do you do when you're in the slump? What do you do when you're doing great? And they constantly say, work hard, produce your product. And that's what I'm going to do.
I think I know the answer to this, but there's a lot of talk when you look at approval numbers, right, about possible primary challenges going to a possible second term for you. Governor Cuomo's name was mentioned. He says he doesn't want it unless you were to step aside. Real talk here. Do you want a second term?
Oh, yes. I want to continue to do the job until the job is done. You know, I don't quit in anything that I do. You know, I failed 2 sergeant's exams before I became a sergeant. But those who passed it before me would salute me by the time I retired as a captain. I'd never give up. I never surrender. From being a child that's dyslexic to having troubles in my youthful years, you don't surrender.
So when you look at so you said you want a second term, do you welcome then the competition from your fellow Democrats?
Well, you're supposed to be competitive. This is a competitive city. And so anyone that believes that you automatically are going to be reelected or automatically will be decided by the people who they want, that is dumb to do. My product is a good product. Decrease crime, I promise. Increase jobs, I promise. Invested in our communities, housing, all the things I promised on Election Day, I delivered on them. People are back on our subway system.
Yes, and the curveball, though, was the migrant crisis.
Oh,
right?
Curveball. That's not even a curveball. That's a brushback pitch that knocked us to the ground, but we got to get back up and knock it out of the park.
Sometimes I don't understand sports references, but that's okay. I think I got that one. Let me begin here, though, because when you look at the approval numbers, a lot of it had to do with the migrant crisis, right? You've been to D.C. many times. So, again, real talk here. Is it fair to say at this point, looking at 2024, no federal aid is coming?
I believe that. I believe that Congressman Jeffries and Senator Schumer are really pounding the pavement. I think it's unfortunate, number one, the Republicans are not in favor of any real immigration reform, and I believe that we are not seeing that this should not be on the backs of New York City and other cities, because now the coalition has grown. Remember, I was by myself at one time. Now you're seeing mayors in Chicago. You're seeing Massachusetts electors, Denver. People are realizing this is unfair to cities across America.
So without federal aid, which is not happening again, you're anticipating in 2024, more cuts. What do cuts look like in 2024? And can you give me a definitive answer as to one or two what it looks like?
Well, let's be clear. What we're going to have to do, and it's extremely painful, we're going to have to see how do we deliver services to our agencies without the resources we normally have. And so there's a lot of creativity that comes with that, like what we rolled out today of using technology to know how snow plows are going. We're going to have to become even smarter and better of delivering a product with less resources.
Okay, so when you look at cuts, though, what will there be specifically in terms of cuts?
Well, everything's on the table. But we want to minimize the impact to low-income New Yorkers, our educational institutions, our public safety, and keeping our city straight. But everything's on the table, Dan, because remember, I have to balance the budget by law. We have a $12 billion hole and a $30-something billion.
So I'm not a mathematician, but when you look at doing that and balancing, cuts only go so far, right, in terms of time that you have. So do you have to look at layoffs?
We have everything's on the table. Everything's on the table. I like to break it down to the smallest level. If you are a homeowner and you have budgeted yourself for your rent, your electricity, your water, etc., then all of a sudden your roof cave in, your insurance policy should pick up on that. Our insurance policy was the federal government. They're not paying us. So everything in that household is going to be impacted. You may have to turn off the lights longer than you want to. You may not have to have 2 meals, 3 meals a day. You may only have to have 2. We must now find out how to balance our budget.
If you did layoffs, where would you begin?
Again, everything's on the table, Dan.
That's your phrase.
Everything's on the table.
Okay, let me try it this way. When you're looking at the scenario here, right, there's a potential, the controller, Brad Lander, said back in 2023, somewhere in February, March, he said, raise the taxes specifically for the rich. Now, I know you're going to say everything's on the table, but are raising taxes a possibility specifically on the rich?
Well, I'm not in control of taxes, payroll taxes. That's the state. I'm in control of property taxes. And when you start raising taxes on middle income, low income New Yorkers, you're placing them further in the hole. What the real conversation that I'm hoping the controllers and others do, we need to be all universally speaking to Washington. We should not be finding ways at a New York City taxpayers to pay for
But would you raise taxes, property taxes for the rich?
Everything's on the table. That's all I can say. Because remember, what I want New Yorkers to understand, there's only a finite amount of money, and once that money dry up on the traditional sources, you have to find. I'm gonna be required to balance the budget.
Okay, and so while we talk about budget cuts, less services that people will be looking at, right, park cleanup and so on and so forth, there are things that are going up and things people are gonna have to pay more for. Congestion pricing being one of them. Are you satisfied when you look at the totality of the plan? There's been a heck of a lot of talk about it. Are you satisfied with how the plan looks right now? No,
I think more needs to be done. Yellow cabs, buses, emergency service vehicles, people who must get to Manhattan because, let's say, medical issues, that's the only place they can go for their medical or cancer treatment. We must make sure that those who go and drive to Manhattan for luxury purposes should be treated differently for those who are doing it for necessity.
Right, so for people who have to travel into the zone for those medical reasons, child care reasons, right, and they don't necessarily have a mass transit option, how are you fighting for them to get an exemption?
Well, remember, this is the MTA, and this is the federal government, the state government. You know, I'm going to continue to use my advocacy to fight on behalf of those individuals that I just mentioned, but the final determination is going to come through the MTA processes.
But besides those exemptions and so on, you're happy with the idea of congestion pricing?
Yeah, with the idea, with the concept. But you know, idealism sometimes collides with realism. We know we need to operationalize this, that it doesn't hurt low-income New Yorkers and displace the environmental concerns in places like the South Bronx.
I want to talk about another big topic here, and that's crime, right? The stats show overall crime, which is a big one for you, is down specifically in transit. That was big. That was part of your campaign as well. But for the first round of budget cuts, some NYPD Academy classes are canceled. Do you think that's going to have an effect going into 2024 about how crime looks going down?
That's a great question. I'm not going to do anything that is going to endanger public safety. The police commissioner and we sat down, we did an analysis. So nothing will impact public safety. You know me, the prerequisite to our prosperity is public safety. And so people who are concerned that we're going to take actions that's going to impact public safety, that is not going to happen. I ran on safe, down in 5 of the 7 major categories, down in homicides, down in shootings. You are seeing a significant proper deployment of police, and we're not going to jeopardize that.
And lastly here, Mr. Mayor, you often talk about Congress and the federal government. You talked about it with the migrant crisis. Big this year was the news of redistricting, which could have a big factor in 2024 of who has the balance of power. Are you in favor of allowing the redistricting process to play out?
Yes, it should play out. And I think it was unfairly done and negatively impact Democrats. Politics should not be in the redistricting process. And I'm hoping, like all heck, that the Dems take back the Congress.
All right, Mr. Mayor, you're not going anywhere. You're going to have much more after the break, including questions into the investigation into his campaign, a big topic in 2023. Pick Some Politics back in 2 minutes.